everyone, and welcome to Horror Night Oasis, a radio show where we discuss all the latest movies and news from the world of horror. Joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host Ian. Ian, are you there?
I hope so.
No, how you doing, my buddy?
Tired.
I'm right there with you. It's going to be a busy week, and we're here, and we're going to put another show out there for all the listening audience for our continuation of the Halloween grab bag marathon, where we review all kinds of Halloween movies for the month of October. And I think we started off fairly strong last week, and I'm looking forward to continuing on with our film this week. And there's really not much else to really do, so let's go ahead and get into it with our review of Creeping Death. Creeping Death. Let me try to get all the characters. Basically, it revolves around Tim, and Tim, he works at this pumpkin patch on the farm, and he's coming up where his friends Nate, Isaac, and Tramer. Technically Nate wants him to come be the designated driver for the other three to when they go partying later on Halloween night. But something came up where his dad has to work, and he has to look over his mom, and his mom is suffering from a brain cancer, so he has to watch over her. And so at the same time, he tells that to Nate, and suppose he's like saying, "Oh, but the girls are going to be there," which is going to be PJ and Danielle. And Danielle is sort of an old flame, if you will, but she moved away to New York, and she's coming back again. She came back for the Halloween party, and the costume contest, and so he's there watching his mom, and around the same time everything's going on, there's this string of murders that's been happening, and there's a ritualistic these markings on the front doors of the houses. It's sort of like I forgot what they are, just like two not squares, but triangles without the triangle, basically. It's like a fast forward and rewind, button, basically, what they look like, but they're interlocked together. And so Nate decides, hey, let's go over to Tim's house. And on the way there, they meet, they're doing pranks, and like they're trying to do all these pranks and film it, Nate is. And they start like TPing a house, and it doesn't go as planned. And then they get to the old man Hawthorne, who's the farmer who does all the pumpkin patch from the beginning. And at the beginning of the movie, he has like this sack that's like bloody that Tim sees in the back of his truck. And so when they're walking, Nate and all the other ones are walking towards his house, they notice that he comes out and leaves this sack on the front of his porch. And basically, Nate tells Tramer, you haven't done anything yet, so you go and get the sack off the porch. And so he does that. They steal the sack off the porch, and then they go to Tim's house. And then they find that inside the sack is a bunch of animal carcasses, bloody animal carcasses. And Tramer left his phone at the old man's house out front in his yard, and he calls, and Hawthorne calls him and says, you need to get back over here, bring the sack, because if you don't, shit's gonna go down, basically. And basically that sets in motion, along with all these string of murders, is that it's a Ishi, and it's this Halloween spirit demon where it needs a appeasement, a sacrifice, before the end of the Halloween night, before midnight. And so that sets in motion the Ishi, where it's going on a killing spree, trying to get its treat, in a sense. And that's technically, without getting into spoilers, Creeping Death. And overall, I dug the film. Honestly, it reminded me of last week's film, Island Pines, because it's the exact same premise. a group of friends who hasn't seen each other for a while, especially the one, it's more of a couple, where love interest, and then they come together and they fight a demon, demon, monster, entity, whatever you call it, on Halloween night, dressed up in costumes. So it's technically Island Pines again. But this one has a little bit more, umph to it because there's more depth with the characters. Each one, Nate is the asshole of the group and just the dick in a sense, where it's like he thinks he knows it all.
Yeah.
PJ and Isaac, they're boyfriend girlfriend, and she's sort of like the take charge, head bitch in charge type of person, where like all the boys are kind of, scared. She's like, fuck this, let's go in there and do this. She's like to take charge. Tim, he's watching over his mother and trying to take care of his mom with this brain tumor, cancer, and she only has like 3 months to live. So there's like character development and like, like depth with him and trying to be a good son and trying to watch over his mom, because earlier in the film she has a seizure, and he's like, there's a lot of factors that slowly happen as the film progresses there with the rules and the lore of the book that the Ishi, that they technically find in Hawthorne's basement. Tramer is sort of just like the dumb jock in a way. I mean, there's no way to say it. He's just the goofy jock. And then Danielle again is sort of, there's a secret, and like there's another thing with her and Nate, and it's sort of a triangle. Again, it's not a bad movie. It has some good. I mean, look at I guess I'm just gonna call him the creature, even though it's Ishi. But the look of the creature is decent. As sort of like a ghoul type, sort of jack o' lantern Sam Hain character. He's takes no prisoners, which is sort of like how the alien creature mutant from Island Pines was. But this one's, he's a little bit more forceful and brooding, I would say, because he's just like he wants his sacrifice, and he just really straightforward with that, and he just like take no prisoners, and it's for what it is. I mean, it's nothing new. I mean, it kind of reminded me of like those other. There's another film that's exactly sort of similar to this, came out last year, called Curse of Crom, where it's also about like these kids. I mean, they're younger kids, but like this old man puts his stuff out on his porch, and like they steal it. Like there's like candy or stuff in there in a sack, and they steal it, and then that sets in motion another vengeful spirit entity on Halloween wanting his sacrifice, basically, and you have to go through it. I mean, it's more friendly than this one. It's not as gory, and this one's pretty bloody, and it has some again some decent scenes because the creature looks cool and menacing, and it's like again, his face is sort of like a jack-o'-lantern where it's like lit up inside and you can see like the flames in the eyes, so it's a cool look, and he's bulking too. Again, I thought it was fine. I didn't mind it. It has more depth and more passion in a sense behind it because of like the over arc in it with Tim and his mom, and again, there has to be a sacrifice to be made, and there's a lot of personal struggles, and again, each character has their own you feel there's more backstory and more depth with the characters than there was in Island Pines. So that kind of worked in its favor, where you're interested in the characters, and when they eventually bite the dust, you're like, oh, that sucks. Especially a couple of them, but some of them are, like Nate, he's a dick because he's an asshole,
Yeah.
But I didn't mind it. Again, it gets a little slow towards the end, and it doesn't really, it's like pretty straightforward. Where like, oh, we have to stop it, or we can survive by midnight. It's sort of like how Dark Harvest was a few years ago, or last year, where you had to survive and stuff like that. So it gives you some depth, but it still goes the same route. But Ian, I'll let you go your opinions, and then we'll go back and forth.
All right. Yeah. No, I agree with like a lot what you said. It really did kind of, you know, get slow. I felt like some of the scenes were a tiny bit repetitive, but other than that, this was a much better film than Island Pines. I like the look of the monster a little bit. Um, I mean, obviously, you can tell it was like a cheesy, like you know, Halloween mask, but like one of the more expensive ones. I thought it looked cool. They actually did try to put more thought and a little bit better execution in this film than the last one, and I enjoyed it. I like that they gave it, like the main character, like a little bit more depth, like, and oh my god, my cats are going crazy. Um, yeah, so yeah, I really did think they gave him the main character more likability. You understand the main character a little bit better and why they are the way they are. Unlike Island Pines that just kind of threw you into it without like making the characters like likable at all. The little love, like thing that was going on between the two characters, I liked. Um, I kind of saw what was, you know, how that whole thing panned out
Hmm.
coming a mile away, but it still did take me by surprise, like the like exact route that it went. So, I mean, it was a fine movie. Like the character you weren't supposed to like, you didn't like them. Everybody else was fine. The monster, there was like a decent amount of like killing, gore was
Yeah.
pretty okay. Um, I didn't feel like there was a whole lot of absolutely unnecessary scenes. It was a fine movie. Like I was pleasantly surprised, especially because you know I was kind of just worried that this would just be like a trick or treat, you know, knockoff, which you know, eh, spirits, Halloween.
Hmm. No,
Uh,
but as you said, like there's some decent kills there, especially again, like as you said, the monster. He is kind of menacing when he's creeping up on you and he grabs you. And he's just like, no, I'm gonna have my way with you in a sense. There's the one kill where he puts his fingers in the guy's under his chin and just holds him there, and like, no, I'm gonna play with my food basically. And then there's another one later on that includes a scythe, and it's just again menacing and brooding because the character is like on his stomach like crawling away. Scythe is implanted in his lower half, and then basically the monster just pulls him through the scythe, and it's like one of the better kills in the movie. It's probably my favorite kill of the movie, and it was just like, yep, I like that one. That's pretty good. And again, I'm sorry to give spoilers away, but it's a cool death. That is a cool
yeah,
death. um and like again there's more depth to the characters. Everyone has their own personality, whereas Island Pines, they just felt shoehorned in. Like, I don't know, like, oh, they're eating cookies and partying. That's, oh boy. It wasn't really anything there. Whereas this one, each character had their own personality. PJ and Isaac. She was always again take charge or always yelling at Isaac, like, Isaac, I told you not to touch anything. She's always yelling at him, and but they had like a good chemistry, where he's like the doofus in a sense.
yeah,
Um, and like even though she sort of talked down to him, I mean, when what eventually goes down, like she was upset about it, and you're like, oh, that sucks. He's kind of sort of the lovable loser. Um, and like again, there's like some good scenes. The deaths are fun, and where it eventually goes. I mean, it's but yeah, as you said, it's basically you know where it's going. Um, but they do give it some heart and some backstory, so it is rather charming there. Again, with Tim and his struggles, like is he going to do the sacrifice, or is there something else? There's a lot of woes going through his head, um, wanting to go that way, and it just it just felt more impactful than Islam Pines did and their character development, which was pretty nil and void. Um,
Yeah.
but like you said, I mean, it's a perfectly serviceable watch. It's adequate. It has some good blood and gore to it. The characters are more developed. Um, again, it goes the route you'd think it'd go, but it's a decent watch. It's like you're not superfluous scenes and neighbors that don't justify anything. No costume party with stupid characters talking back and forth about who runs the costume party for how many years and friendships that you haven't seen each other since last time. There's just a bunch of nonsense that Islam Pines had with the clown at the costume party and the neighbor. This one was like sufficient. I mean, they introduced the Uber driver, but like his character was kind of stupid. But then he gets his, in a sense, like, oh, it kind of makes sense. At least killing people there. It gets them to point A to point B, basically, to where eventually, later on in the film, where it eventually leads to. But yeah, it's a perfectly fine watch. I had fun with it, and I do. It is probably one of the. Again, from the two, it's the better of the two, and probably one to check out
Oh
over
yeah,
one because
most
it's the
definitely.
exact same film, but just it's more. There's more quality control to it, and more depth and character and everything. And it's still sort of the same kind of bloodshed. I mean, of course, there's no exploding dick, but I don't. The size scene alone is like that's pretty good. So you have you can watch the exploding dick for the first 20 minutes of Islam Pines, turn it off, watch Creeping Death, and you're good.
No, exactly. Like I am glad that that this movie was better than the last one because I was kind of like, it was kind of like a drag and nothing really happened. But in this one, like at least I felt like I got a decent story out of it. Like
Mm-hmm.
they actually tried with what they had. They didn't try to be, something it wasn't. And I really appreciated that. And I felt like it leaned into more of the camp than the last one did, even though the last movie was supposed to be campy. And I didn't feel that at all. Like
Mm-hmm.
this one really had a good, you could tell that this was like a passion project and that they put like everything they had into it. The acting wasn't stiff. Um, sorry, I'm just thinking of oh no, they're tearing her face off. Oh no, just that, like I'm glad, So I mean, this is a pretty decent little Halloween watch, and I'm hoping that the next movie will be better, with the theme that's going. So
Yeah, but yeah, like I said, I'm right there with you. I think it's definitely better than Islam Pines because it's the exact same film, but there's more depth to it and more character, um, you know, development and like stakes. There's stakes involved. Whereas Islam Pines, it just felt, you know, brushed over. Like, oh, a character died. On to the next one. Oh, a character died. On to the next one. This one, there's like, you get involved with their characters and, it's well written. That's, basically. And like, I mean, each character has their ups and downs and their qualities, especially Nate and all that stuff. But like, he's an asshole. You want to see him get his comeuppance at later on in the film. And like some of them, you don't, but that's a slasher movie for you. But you kind of get that throwback where like, oh, you didn't want to see that character die, And there's a few instances where like I knew it was going to happen, and just like, oh well, that sucks. But because you ultimately know who's going to survive. But I digress. Um, but it is fun. Again, the last act's a little slow, but that's just where like again revelations are revealed and intentions and stuff like that. So it's not as smoothly as it should be. But it's definitely better than Island Pines. And like I said, it's like again better than Curse of Crom, which is the exact same film but not bloody. And it's just an interesting, fun little watch. Uh, so I do suggest it. Um, Now, when it comes to again, when we do these, we always like to uh, make a candy reference to it, like we're reaching into that bag. And I'm going sort of. I know last week you went with the Crunch Bar, but I think I'm going a little bit sort of. I'm not stealing it. I'm going to go 100 grand because it sort of has the same ingredients, but it has a better rich center with the caramel
Oh
inside.
yeah.
So it's tasty. I mean, there's more depth to it than just rice and chocolate. You get that gooey, that creamy center. It's more rich and vibrant, and more well developed, and it tastes better. So I'm going 100 grand.
I'm trying to think of what uh I would make this one as. Because I'm trying to think of something good. Nothing like perfect. Like it's definitely no like Reese,
No.
but oh, this one might be a little difficult because I'm trying to remember chocolate. Like I'm trying to remember like popular Halloween candy.
Well, see, I went with 100 grand because I already stated my reasons. But like at one point, I was about to go like a dark chocolate something because it's like more richer, but it's like it's not bitter or anything, so it's like it doesn't really have that vibe to it. So that's where I went with like 100 grand
Hmm.
because it's just like more, has more of a punch to it when you bite into it than just rice and chocolate.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's not a Crunch Bar.
No.
um, I don't know. I might have to go with like I'm gonna say a Milky Way.
Mm. See, I was going dark chocolate Milky Way when I was thinking like, is it
Yeah.
100 grand or dark chocolate Milky Way?
Personally, I mean, I'll eat a Milky Way. Um, like I get excited when I see them, but like it's not a candy I normally would go out of my way to get. I usually just eat it when uh, if given to me. So yeah, I'll go with that one because it's serviceable. I liked it.
Mhm.
I had it was a nice little watch. It was really well made for like a lower budget indie movie. Um, it was fine, and that's how what I think of a Milky Way. Like the filling is pretty. It's a lot of fluff, but like it tastes good. It was
Mhm.
it's enjoyable, and that's kind of like how I felt. Like it's like yeah, there's a lot of little tiny fluff here and there, but like I felt like it wasn't really done in a bad way.
No.
Like some like it gave us the information that we needed of why what was happening, you know why the characters act the way they do, you know and I felt like there was a lot of like backstories added to everything, which that's why I'm like I was thinking like this is a nice little fluff, and that's what to me that's what a Milky Way has. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
going to go with.
That's
It's
yeah.
good. It's got fluff, but it's good. It's enjoyable. Um, isn't it? I mean, it's what the around the same length as Island Pines,
Yeah, it's about that.
and like I felt like I didn't feel like the movie dragged on way too much. So I'm, both were short, but Island Pines felt longer.
Yeah, Island Pines just had too much. I mean, a lot of unnecessary stuff. I mean, I understand what they were going for, but we discussed that in last week's review, so you can listen to that. I was just like, again, we always go over it and try to compare and contrast. It's just like, yeah, there's just a lot of unnecessary with Island that didn't need to be there. It could have been shortened and have been the same movie. This one, it was concise, to the point, more character, well written characters, a deeper plot, um, issues and things being brought to light as the film progressed. Characters you kind of don't want to see die. Um, Interesting monster, and vicious kills. Because he was take no prisoners a lot of the time, and just menacing. That's what the best way to describe the monster. And
Yeah.
a decent look. It's not the greatest, but it's serving. It reminded me of like Kane from See No Evil. Like he wasn't. I mean, he's not in the best movie, but he did a good job as the killer. It's like sort of menacing and just take no prisoners and attacking people. That one scene where he's shoving the cell phone down the lady's throat. Just like a bunch of stuff like that. But yeah, I dug it. Again, like I said, it's one step up from Island Pine, so that's the reason I did the 100 grand, because it has a more rich, creamy, tasty center. So again, that's our reasonings for the choices. And again, there's not really much else to talk about with the film without getting into spoilers, and I don't want to do that. I do want people to check it out and maybe give us their thoughts on it. And yeah, that's gonna do it, I believe, for this week's episode of the Halloween Grab Bag Marathon. Tongue tied there. As always, Ian, it's great talking with you, and I'm looking forward to our next choice when we reach in there and pull something out. And only time will tell. Hopefully, it's a tasty one like this one was. But as always, I appreciate everyone for listening, and we will see you next time on Horror Night Oasis.
All right. Good night.